Hey everybody, welcome to Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. This is episode number 141 of our YouTube channel and podcast, and I cannot be more excited to continue sharing with you guys personal finance topics that I think could be useful for you in your long-term financial journey. Today, we are going to be talking about a specific way that individuals borrow money that seems very advantageous, but can also be extremely dangerous, and that is borrowing at 0% or 0% loans and why it can be particularly dangerous to us all. And so I really want to nail down my feelings about this particular type of loan and why I still think we need to avoid debt even if it is a 0% debt. Before we get started though, if you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below and I'll be sure to get back to anything that you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, then be sure to subscribe and leave me a review on either one of those platforms. That'd be greatly appreciated. Then follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form YouTube and podcast episodes every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you walk through your financial life to create a plan that is specific to you and your family and to keep you accountable to that plan over the long term, then I can help you do that. Just go to my website, www.MNOwithDylan.com. Click on the Work with Dylan tab and you can choose the financial coaching session type that would work best for you, and we can begin pushing towards your long-term financial goals together. Now, it's no secret what my feelings are about debt. I feel like, and I know that debt is a strain on your cash flow. Any debt that you have is going to be a long-term strain on your cash flow. It is going to take away from what you can spend later on because you have to make debt payments. And that's why that a big part of the financial action plan is to get out of all consumer debt. And even once you get a mortgage, to at some point within a short amount of time, get out of that mortgage debt as well, pay off your home. And when we have no debt, what we can do is we can invest more, we can save more, we can do all of the things with our money that we need to do to get to long-term financial freedom. And not to mention, we can spend and give more as well. We can do the things that we want to do that is money flowing outward from ourselves, where we're not just keeping our money, where we are making the money available to others via giving, or to have fun and do things that are fun and enjoy ourselves with our spending. But if we are in debt, we cannot do that. And zero interest debt, zero interest borrowing, 0% loans are no different when it comes to their drain on your cash flow. Now, the only difference with a 0% loan versus a normal loan that has some nominal stated interest rate is that whatever interest rate is stated, right? Whatever interest rate is stated on a particular loan, right? That is going to add to the amount of money that you pay over time. But with a zero interest loan, obviously you're just repaying the principal cut up into certain amounts of money over time. So for instance, if you have a $36,000 loan, and let's say it is on a vehicle for 6 years, right? That is 72 months worth of payments. Well, each payment will be exactly $500 because $36,000 divide by 72, you end up with 500. So you'll pay $500 each month. There will be no interest, right? It will just be cut up payments. And in theory, this sounds extremely enticing. And why does this sound enticing? It sounds enticing because if I don't have to pay interest, and I understand the time value of money, I understand how money compounds, then I understand that money tomorrow is worth less than money today. So I'm not spending today's value of $500 later on. Inflation is going to eat away at the value of each payment that I make back to this company, whoever loaned me the money. Typically, it is car dealerships and car manufacturers that are selling you vehicles at 0%. But this also occurs with credit cards, although the loans aren't perfectly amortized like they are with car loans. And so if the value of the payment that I'm making later is going to be less than the present value that I would just pay in cash, then why would I not decide to just go ahead and make those payments over time, right? It would be cheaper for me. Well, maybe not. See, the problem is this. The problem is that we assume that the price for purchasing whatever it may be, especially if it is a vehicle or some luxury good, would be the same if there was an interest rate attached. We assume that the principal value would be the same. The problem is that is not true. Don't you think that these car companies know what they're doing? Don't you think these financing companies are going to make money on you regardless? They are going to give out these 0% loans. But don't you think that the interest may be baked in? Even though it may be less interest, don't you think it's baked into the price of the loan? Even if it sounds like a great deal, that interest is priced in. I guarantee you, if there was some rate on that loan, the principal value, the price at which you are financing that particular loan would not be near as high. So if you have a $36,000 car loan, then I'm guessing that that $36,000 is not what it would have cost you if there was some rate attached. And that is a big downside because it's really no different than any other type of debt. They just put 0% on it, so it entices you to go into debt and make those monthly payments to them, even though they are quote unquote 0%. That doesn't make any difference to them because they have already priced in the interest. They have already priced in what is going to happen in the future. And as a consumer, right, we have to take that into account as well, because we can't just think that, oh, we're getting this great deal on whatever this may be. We have to understand and what we may want to do, especially if we are purchasing a new vehicle, because typically 0% loans are only offered on new vehicles. If we are going to purchase a new vehicle, we need to run comps. We need to look at comparisons among different car dealerships and see, okay, what would my cost be if I were to pay here versus what would my cost be to pay here? Now, obviously, we want to pay for cash for our vehicles. We've talked about this before. We do not want to be financing things that are going to go down in value or depreciate. And just about everything you can get a 0% loan on is going to depreciate over time. Now, obviously, mortgages are really, really cheap right now, but they aren't 0%. There are no 0% mortgages that you could get right now. Other types of 0% loans there may be out there are different retailers. Retailers can offer 0% loans on things that you shouldn't even really be financing anyway, like furniture, like some type of electronic, things like that, things that already have high markups on them. So if you don't think that interest is already baked into those particular loans, then you're crazy, right? The interest is baked in. So it's no different than a normal loan. So why do we look at it as different? Because they are marketed differently. And we think that we got over on the car company. I promise you, you are not getting over on Toyota. You're not getting over on GM or Ford. They have people that know how to market. They have people who know how to do basic finance and take present values of certain cash flows and see, okay, if it were a 0% loan versus if it had, let's say, a 3.5% rate or a 3% rate on it, can we make those present values the exact same, and what would it take in order to do so? And they will do those type of analyses in order to get you, entice you to purchase something because it is at 0%, where that may not be the best deal for you. And let us not forget that purchasing a new vehicle, which is the only thing you're going to find 0% loan for, is because used vehicles, they have already depreciated for some amount of time. And so those used car lots are trying to make some type of spread, and they'll do so by the interest that is offered on the loan. The only way that you're going to get 0% is by buying a new vehicle. And not only is it only by buying a new vehicle, you have to have a really good credit score, right? They're not going to give 0% interest to anybody with a credit score. Typically, if you don't have over a 720, you are not going to get a 0% loan. And so if these car companies are giving these 0% financing options, and they want to entice you and bring you in and try to give you this particular type of financing, that means you're financing a new car. And we've talked about, if you drive a new car off the lot, it's immediately depreciating so quickly. And we should not be buying new cars if we don't have an adequate amount of net worth to be purchasing cars and being able to take that hit on depreciation over time. Good used cars are far better uses of our money. And regardless of whether it is a new or used vehicle, we should not be signing up for financing. We should not be signing up for any type of loan that we're going to have to systematically repay over time, because that is only going to be a drain on our future cash flows, and that is only going to take away from our ability to build wealth over time. if you can't afford to buy something today, that is okay. We have to be able to say no. We have to be able to have this delayed gratification mindset to where even though I want to purchase this car today, if I don't have the cash to purchase this depreciating asset today, then I am not going to purchase this asset. And obviously, electronics are going to depreciate really fast as well. Furniture is going to depreciate really fast as well. Have you ever tried to have a yard sale and sell an old TV or an old couch or something like that? Think about how much you actually paid for that when it was brand new versus how much you end up selling it for in the yard sale. And it will really make you scratch your head and really wonder why you ever would take out 0% financing on something like that. And in the same way, have you ever tried to sell a car after you purchased it 3 years earlier for, $30,000, and then you look up 3 years later and you're like, why am I selling it for, half the value or less than half the value? Because they depreciate so quickly. People don't want these used items, and so they're going to have to get a discount for purchasing these used items. And that is also why you're not getting 0% loans on these types of items as well. Now, something that a lot of people don't know about 0% financing is that a lot of these loans are extremely rigid, and they have very specific guidelines. They have very specific loan repayment terms, right? So the amount of time, what the payment is, things like that. It's very rigid. And so the entire balance has to get paid back by a certain time. There is very little leeway. Whereas if you miss a car payment in some other situation where you are paying an interest rate, right, they may give you a little bit of grace and not repo you or not charge you any penalties or anything like that. But if you are to miss a payment on a 0% loan, then you can bet that they are going to employ some type of rate on you or be far more stringent with their ability to take their asset back, whoever is the financing company through which you got the loan, which we shouldn't be getting these loans again in the first place. But if you do get these types of loans, you have to understand that it is going to be extremely rigid. And if you do not pay as you are supposed to pay, exactly on time, exactly right, and you make any type of mistake, then you will pay for that mistake, whether it is in the way of more interest or in the way of getting your vehicle repoed a lot quicker. And not only would they add interest to the loan, they could backdate interest into the loan, meaning let's say you're 3 years into a 5-year loan and you miss a payment or you underpay, right? They could backdate interest into the loan, meaning they will make you pay interest on all of the payments that you had up to that point, given whatever interest rate they want to employ on that loan. So it can be extremely costly to mess up when you are borrowing at 0%. Now, a lot of people think of borrowing at 0% in the same way as they think of credit cards, right? They think, oh, well, what I'll do is I'll just borrow at 0%. And, I was going to buy this anyway in cash for this amount. I'll just borrow at 0%. That means I have to give up less money today, and I'll just spread it out over time. And that inflation effect that we talked about earlier, where inflation is eating away at the value of the payments. And so in real terms, you're paying less over time. That will work for you, and you don't just have to pay, like that original example, $36,000 right up front. You can spread that out over time, and the value of money will get eaten away, and you will come out on top. That's great in theory, and it's great in mathematics. I completely understand what the theory is behind that. I understand. But the behavior aspect is what we have to focus on. We are not just focused on what are the mathematics behind personal finance. We're not just focused on what seems to be the best given perfect behavior. We have to assume that we can make mistakes. We have to assume that we can do stupid stuff. Stupid stuff like underpaying on a 0% loan or missing a payment on a 0% loan on accident, and then being stuck with interest and backdated interest and having to come up with that and then losing on that loan, right? That's something that could be really dumb that we would end up doing. And what it's also going to force us into or lead us to, right, this option of 0% financing, is it's going to lead us into the idea that, hey, I can just, I can have whatever this item is and not ever pay interest. So I'm only going to pay the sticker price So why wouldn't I just buy it? Why wouldn't I buy it today, right? Why wouldn't I just go ahead and purchase this thing in the same way as having a credit card is going to entice us into buying things, and it's going to make us comfortable with debt. It's going to make us comfortable with purchasing more and more things on 0% interest, thus leading to less and less cash flow being involved in our budget every single month. Therefore, we are strapped for cash more than we were previously when we are falling into this trap of 0% borrowing. So that leads us to talking about 0% borrowing is leading us into impulse purchases. I'm sure you guys have been in the car and you've been listening to the radio before, and you've heard these car dealerships touting their 0% interest and 0% on certain loan promotions, and that makes people take the bait. People hear 0% on a 2021 Chevy Tahoe or Cadillac Escalade or whatever it may be, and they think, oh well, that makes it more affordable. Like I talked about earlier, not really. And so it makes people say, oh well, that sounds like a really good deal. Let me go check it out. And they'll end up buying things that they otherwise would not need because they think it is a better deal than it really is. And it is not that good of a deal. Again, we have already had the conversation of how the interest is priced in. We don't have to look at these loans very long in order to determine that given a common interest rate, given some interest rate that they would put on this type of loan, that they're not giving you a deal. They're giving you something that looks like a deal in order to make money easier, because they're going to lead you into this place where you will buy without even thinking or without even doing some logical mathematics or logical thought yourself. If you want to have a math conversation, then have a math conversation around the interest that is already baked into this loan. Now, something that is also not surprising is that salespeople want to push you towards 0% financing. Now, why do they want to do that? Well, wouldn't they make less money? Well, not necessarily. And here's why. Is that what they will do is they'll push you towards 0% interest. And what this will do is this will also push you towards more expensive purchases, more expensive principal purchases. And if the principal amount is higher, then what happens? The salesperson is going to make more money. The salesperson is not going to push you towards the most logical determination, the most logical outcome. They're going to push you towards the thing that is going to be most beneficial for themselves. They are going to be out there with that conflict of interest of getting you in the best vehicle versus making the money for themselves. And I promise you, they are looking to make the money for themselves. And so they'll push you towards those 0% promotions in order to make you spend more money. It seems like a good deal, but again, it is absolutely not. And something else that these 0% loans do, not only do they attract people to higher, more expensive cost items, what they will do is they will get people in the door who do not even qualify for these 0% loans. So like I said earlier, it may take a 720 credit score in order to get a 0% loan at a particular car dealership. And if that's the case, then those individuals coming in with 720s, the salespeople might try to push those individuals into higher priced vehicles. But if you come in and let's say you've got a 650 credit score, and so it's kind of subpar, then you won't qualify for that 0% interest, but you will have heard about 0% interest on a particular vehicle. You may have already gone out and looked at that vehicle, fallen in love with that vehicle. Then a salesperson at that point can talk you into a car loan with a particular interest rate that may not be extremely high, but is obviously more than the 0% offered to those who qualify. And so not only are these 0% loans already costly enough, not only is the price already baked in, not only is the interest already baked into that particular price, you also have people who don't qualify that are going to get the same price, but it is going to have an interest rate tacked on top of it. And so these companies that are financing are going to continue to make more and more because they are getting people in the door that otherwise would not come in if those promotions were not going on. They don't just want you to sign up for the 0% loan if they are offering it. They want people to get in the door that don't even qualify. That way they can talk them into buying something, or they can have them fall in love with something and finance that thing over, 84 months or 72 months or whatever it may be. This is why it is so important to understand how these different things work, how these car dealerships are going about selling things to you. And it's so important to not even let debt be an option in the first place, because you see how easy it is to jump into a situation where you could fall into a particular loan type. And that's not me saying that you just fall into it, right? You make that decision. Obviously, that is on you to make the right decision. But if you get, talked into this particular type of loan by a salesman, and you think that it's going to work out well for you, or it seems like what would be best for you, or they get you in the door with this, crazy 0% promotion, this is not what's best for you. It is what's best for them. They would not be marketing it if it was not what's best for them. If you think you're getting one over on them, you're not going to be marketed something that is going to get over on these companies, right? In the same way that credit card companies, they want you to keep using your credit card over time, because they know, just based on the statistics, that most people will end up making a mistake. They will end up relying on the credit card and accruing interest over time, and then become comfortable with accruing interest. And in the same way, these car companies know that if I can get you in the door, then even if you don't qualify for whatever I'm offering at 0%, I can still get you to buy something that is outside of your price range, or that we can finance for you at a particular interest rate and make more money on you. I promise you, they are not promoting things that are going to be good for you. They're promoting things that are going to be good for the company, for their bottom line, because otherwise, why would they do it? Otherwise, why would they spend the marketing dollars to get it out to you and tell you about it? Obviously, they would not. These things are not something that is going to be financially beneficial to you, because things that are financially beneficial to you are not going to be financially beneficial to the car companies, I promise. Now, I've talked a lot about car companies. Credit card companies can also offer you 0% promotions. Typically, they'll offer you something like 0% for a year or 0% for 24 months, and then they'll increase it to some particular interest rate. The problem with this is that if you are delinquent on even one payment, if you miss on even one payment, in the same way as I was talking about with car dealerships, if you're delinquent on even one payment on revolving debt, then they can ratchet up the interest rate on you. And so if you opt for such a 0% deal, you should be mindful that there are penalties for paying late. And this deal may not last for long. So if you're trying to get over on a credit card company and hold some balance for some period of time before you choose to pay it off, and you mess up and don't make a payment that you were supposed to make, then it can be troubling. It can be a big issue, because again, not only adding an interest rate onto the front end, backdating interest can really cost you a ton of money. So 0% is just absolutely not where we want to be. It's not, we don't want to borrow money, okay? You can stay out of trouble if you just do not borrow money. If you don't borrow, then you don't have to pay anybody, right? And if you don't have to pay anybody, then guess what? You have money in your wallet. You have money to spend. You have cash, right? And if you have cash, then you can save, you can invest, you can spend money how you want to spend it, and you can absolutely give money how you want to give it. But the more that we are being enticed by the opportunities to take out loans at really low interest rates, or at 0% even, then we are going to get in trouble, because these things are not beneficial for us. Which kind of brings me to one more thing that I want to talk about. And this is not 0% borrowing, but it's actually getting really close. And I want to just sit on this for just a second. It is, for a lot of people, really inexpensive to get a home loan right now. And obviously, like I said earlier, it is not 0%. But if you want to get a 15-year mortgage right now, you can get one for less than 2%, which is an extremely low amount of interest relative to historical amounts. And this sounds like a great deal, right? Many people have been refinancing down to lower rates, which, hey, great for them. And some people have been purchasing houses at these low rates. And so the housing markets have been booming because people are getting into these low rate mortgages, which nothing is wrong with a low rate mortgage. The problem is, just like with 0% interest and 0% loans, you are going to overreach in your ability to buy, right? You are going to reach to a higher amount because people are only worried about the monthly payment. They're only worried about what they have to pay per month, right? So they're going to overreach to a high amount of a loan balance and say, oh, well, I can cover this payment. The problem being is that if you already have record low interest rates, how are you going to refinance your way to a lower rate if you get in trouble because you overreached on the amount of home that you purchased? Right? If your payment is already the maximum payment that you can make, which I don't think it should ever be, right? I've talked about a quarter of your take-home pay should be what your housing costs are. And if it is, more than that, or if, you're really pushing the limits of what you can spend on a mortgage, and then let's say you get into a crunch to where you lose a job or something, and you've left no room for yourself to refinance down because you're already at record low interest rates, there's no opportunity to do so, then there's really only a couple things you can do. You can either sell your home or you can be foreclosed on. And so the issue with this cheap debt, this cheap borrowing, is that it makes you think that you can afford more than you can. And the truth is that you cannot. Right? And people want to talk you into it. People want you to purchase more expensive things because those salespeople are going to make money. That real estate agent is going to make money if you buy a house with a higher principal value. It's not as important to them about your interest rate, right? They love that you can get a lower interest rate because that means you can buy more house. And if you can buy more house, then they get paid more because their pay is based on a percentage of the home's value. In the same way, car dealerships, they want to push you to higher cost vehicles. Why? Because if they push you towards that higher cost vehicle, then they will make more money because their commission is based on the principal amount of the car. This cheap debt is dangerous, okay? I understand if you own a home and you refinance down and it makes a lot of sense for you and you can save a lot of money in that way over time, I completely understand, right? Or if you were going to buy a house anyway and you were able to get one financed at a cheaper price, or if you were going to move anyway and you got one financed at a cheaper price, good for you. But if you just went out and bought a home because it was cheaper to do so, that can be extremely dangerous, especially if you push the limits of what you are able to spend monthly. Also, it's really dangerous to go out and even check out vehicles or check out electronics or check out things at 0% interest. If you can't pay for depreciating assets in cash, then you should not purchase them. And if you cannot make sure that your home's monthly payment is 1/4 or less of your take-home pay on a 15-year fixed mortgage, then you are going to run into issues as well. So just be mindful, be thoughtful about this cheap debt, especially be thoughtful about this 0% debt because it sounds good. And people are going to make it sound good. And I've debunked some of their myths in this particular episode, but I promise you, staying out of debt, being free, being able to go and spend money on what you want to spend money on and delay your gratification and buy things later on that are really new and nice and, something maybe you can't afford right now that you could go and buy at 0%. I understand you want that nice car. I understand you want that huge TV. I understand that you want that new nice furniture. But if you can just put it off for a while and save up the cash to purchase it, right? And that cash be earmarked for that. And then you go and purchase whatever that is, you're going to feel so much better than if you go and you finance something even at 0%. Not to mention the likelihood of you spending less because you went and purchased it in cash is far, far higher, which is going to turn out to be a positive for us in the long term and our ability to reach long-term financial freedom. So hey guys, thanks for watching this video. If you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below if you haven't done so already, and I'll be sure to respond to anything you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcast, then be sure to subscribe and leave a review on either one of those platforms. That would be greatly appreciated. And then follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form episodes on YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you with your financial life, to create a financial plan that's specific to you and your family and help you walk through that plan over time, I can help you to do that. Just go to my website, www.mnowithdylan.com. Click on the Work with Dylan tab, and you can choose the financial coaching session type that would work best for you, and we can begin pushing towards your long-term financial goals together. So tune in tomorrow as I talk about some of the craziest things that people have financed and why financing these things on top of the things that you hear financed all the time, cars and homes and all these different types of things, is just absolutely crazy. And it will lead us to financial ruin if we choose to do it as well. And so tune in for that. So thanks for tuning into this episode of Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. God bless.